Okay, so if your note packet is all done and good, what we're going to go ahead and do right now is do a little bit of a warm-up activity. And what you're going to do is you're going to turn your textbook to page 91, and you're going to see a chart there. Remember why we do these things. You want to practice using those very expensive textbooks that you're going to have to buy next year when you're out of high school. And you're turning to page 91, and you're going to pull out some important information. You'll see when I made this note packet, I retyped this chart that you see on page 91 in your text. And I left some important things blank because I wanted you to pay attention to them. What I'd like you to do right now is take some time to read the chart and fill in the blanks as your warm-up activity for today. Spoiler alert, this particular chart is very much like your homework assignment for tonight. What you're doing on your homework assignment for tonight is two things. So while I'm talking about it, let me just talk about your homework real quick. Your homework assignment for tonight is a couple of book problems. It'll give you a phrase like you're copying down right now. The sum of x and 2. And you have to write that in symbols. So you would just write x plus 2. Or it might say the product of 7 and y. So you would write 7 times y. So it's a really short little sample set of book problems. In addition, you know that today is like a flip day, right? So what I'm going to do after you folks leave, we're going to get to probably like the second or third example in the notes, depending on how good you are at this. And then when you leave, I'm going to hit record again, and I'm going to finish the notes as if you were sitting right here in front of me. And then your other assignment for tonight, besides a couple of quick homework problems, is to finish the notes. Please keep in mind you could watch the video to finish the notes. You could just look at the PDF file if you can't stand the sound of my voice. Or you may already be noticing that I'm not the most creative lady when it comes to typing up your note packets. I take a lot of problems from your textbook, and that's intentional. That's in case you don't have access to the internet or something like that and you need to catch up on the notes. You can look at your textbook. That's how we used to do it back in the day, you know. We read the books. So, yeah, you can go ahead and also look at your textbook to fill in the notes. Does everybody understand what your 2 homework assignments are? You have a couple book problems and you're finishing these notes. Tomorrow when you come back in, bring your book with you again because we have word problems to do together as a class. It's more helpful if you start the word problems with them when I'm here. Okay, with that, some of you are well into this table. I'll go ahead and cut you loose for a minute. Nikki, you can run, and then Eddie, you can go. Is that okay? All right. Yeah, go ahead. I have to catch up with a couple people who weren't here. Okay, so yeah, you're going to want to use this chart to kind of help you through your assignment for tonight. We're going to go ahead and get into some word problems. Okay, I teach word problems in 3 steps. Interestingly enough, when we were going through different college algebra books and trying to decide which ones to buy, I kind of took a look at this section and I was like, oh, that's not bad. I use the exact same 3 steps, so that's nice. For years and years and years, I've taught this same 3-step approach to solving word problems. But then upon further review, I was like, they do them in a different order than I typically do them. But my order has met with some success in the past, so I'm going to stick with it. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. So what we're going to go ahead and do in step 1 of kind of reviewing word problems again, linear word problems. In step 1, what we're going to go ahead and do is read the problem, and we're going to pick out facts that we know and stuff that we don't. I'm going to repeat that step again because it's really important. In step 1 of any good word problem, you read it, maybe with a pen or a highlighter, you identify things that you know and things that you don't. Okay? So let's do that. Step 1. If you look at example 1 using a verbal model, you accept a job with an annual income of $32,300 per year. Annual income. That's how much money you're bringing in, right? This includes your salary and, there's a symbol right there for math class, your salary and a year-end bonus of $500. And in math class usually means add them together, right? You are paid twice a month. What is your gross pay, that's pay before taxes, by the way, for each paycheck? All right, so let's hear it. What are some things that you know from this problem? Good, Chris? The annual income is $32,300. So I go right into step 2, and then I go back and do step 1. So our annual income is $32,300. What are some other fun facts? Good. You get paid twice a month, right? I have a question for you though. This is annual income, right? How many pays are there? 24 pays, yep. If it said weekly, 52 pays. Monthly, 12 pays. We used to get paid monthly here at the high school. It was interesting. And nice, I liked it. One paycheck to keep track of. Do we know anything else? Fun facts embedded in this word problem. I can think of one other one. Go ahead, Alex. That's correct. What do I not know? Yeah, what? Yeah, each paycheck. I don't know what that is. When I don't know what something is in math class, do you know what I do? Yeah, I make it X. Very good. That is what the algebra teacher does. If they don't know something, they make it X. So, and that's what we do. That's what we're going to do. We don't know the amount of each pay. So we call it X. I don't know what that is. I'm going to figure it out though. Okay, then what we go ahead and do, after we identify what we know and identify what we don't, we write what's called a verbal model. Basically, it's like an equation, but it still has words in it. It kind of bridges the gap from the paragraph words to actually a full-on equation. So with that, this one's kind of done for us. It's kind of nice. Do you see up to the left right there? We have our income for the year. The income for the year is comprised of 2 pieces. And I know that, and I mentioned it, it's because of this word "and" right here. The salary is comprised of 2 pieces. You have the amount from all your paychecks, plus you have your year-end bonus of $500, right? So what we're going to go ahead and do is translate this "and" to the plus sign. So you have your salary and your year-end bonus. So this blank right here, you probably guessed it, that's your year-end bonus. And we actually had 24 pays to help us figure out our salary. So we're going to do 24 checks times the amount of each check, add on that year-end bonus, and that gives me my income for the whole year. Does this model make sense to you? Yeah? Everybody? Because in the next couple of problems, you have to do this part on your own. So what you kind of do is, notice I didn't use any symbols or anything like that just yet. You know, I didn't actually substitute in variable expressions or anything like that. That's actually in this last step. Step 3, we write and solve an equation based on our verbal model. So basically what we do is these little rectangles, we're going to swap them out with their logical equivalents that we could find in step 2. For instance, the income for the year. The income for the year is just $32,300. So I'm going to jot that down. I'm going to replace or use my property of substitution to swap out income for the year with $32,300. And then I'm going to bring down my equal sign. 24 checks. That's going to stay 24. Times the amount of each check. The amount of each paycheck there, that was X. Bring down your plus, and you have to add on your year-end bonus of $500. So now I have an equation that you already know how to solve. You guys did a nice job with this stuff on your quiz yesterday. Those look pretty good. They're not done yet. They look pretty good. I should be able to get those back to you tomorrow. I still have quite a few people who need to take them though, so we'll see how that goes. The goal would be to give them back to you tomorrow while you're working on your flip day. Okay, what I want you to do right now, since you're so good at this step, I want you to finish it for me. Can you solve that equation for x, please? Keep in mind the directions. When we answer a word problem specifically, you actually have to write your answer as a sentence. A number, when you solve for x and you get x equals a number, doesn't quite cut it. You want to completely answer the question and leave no gray area. So go ahead, take a second, solve for x. Remember, you can check your answer, plug it back in, make sure you generate a true statement. All right, I see you guys subtracting 500 from both sides. That looks good. So when you solve for x, I'm looking around, most of you are getting x equals 1,325. Please understand that if you write that on a test or quiz, though numerically accurate, it really doesn't answer the question, is kind of what I'm telling you. If you want to answer the question, you should use a sentence. You should tell me what this number means. And what we just answered, if you'll recall, was just the amount of each paycheck. So you could just say each paycheck will amount to $1,325. It's not hard to do. You don't have to write me a book. You just have to answer the question. Now that's the gross pay. And then knock off a third of it for taxes, and that's your take-home pay, typically. So that's a very nice salary, but until you take all the extra money for benefits and taxes, all that good stuff. Questions about this first example? Okay, what I hope you could take away at least from this example is we have a 3-step process for setting up word problems. We read it, we identify stuff that we know and stuff that we don't. Next, we write some sort of verbal model. We have like sort of this quasi-symbolic language for expressing a situation just like what's in the word problem. And then in the last step, we write an equation from that verbal model and solve it, or write your answer with a sentence. So that's what I hope you just took away from the shell of how we're going to do each problem. All right, so let's do it again. The problems vary from scenario to scenario. Your verbal model could look a little bit different. Doesn't always have to be in that like precise y equals mx plus b format. For instance, in example 2, we're going to find the percentage of a raise. And it says you accept a job that pays $10 per hour. Remember, as we read, you're looking for stuff that we know and stuff that we don't. You accept a job that pays $10 per hour. You are told that after a 2-month probationary period, that's like a waiting period, after a 2-month probationary or trial period, your hourly wage will be increased to $11 per hour. What percent raise will you receive after the 2-month waiting period? That's what we're looking for here. Okay, I always do step 2 first. I identify stuff that I know and stuff that I don't. So what are some things that I know in just reading the problem? Chris is really good at this. I'm going to let you off the hook for a minute. It's called wait time. Good, David? Yes, that's our initial pay, right, David? What are some other fun facts? John. So we do get a final pay after this probationary period. This is also a common sort of setup. You know, this does happen. I think I saw like a UPMC ad or something like that on TV where the same thing. They're like, hey, you're going to start at this wage, but in a couple of months, we're going to give you this wage. Very common, especially with health benefits. They'll bring you into the company, they'll have you work, and then they see how it goes. And then after about 8 weeks or so, then you qualify for health benefits, which can be difficult because you're left like, without health benefits for a little while or paying expensive COBRA coverage. But yeah, this is just a common scenario. So we have our initial pay is $10. Our final pay is $11. What else do we know about this problem? John? There's a 2-month waiting period. Okay, considering what we don't know in the problem, do you think that we're going to have to do something with the 2? I'm looking for a yes or a no. There's no maybes. Okay, you hold that thought. We're going to toss it out to the class. Right now we're holding the thought. We have to do something with the 2 in 2 months. We'll hold that thought. What else? Stuff that we know, stuff that we don't. Go ahead, Chris. Okay, so the percentage. Percentage of what? Percent of raise. I don't like that. I'm going to put percent raise, not percent of raise. So when I don't know something in math class, what do I call it? X. Very good. Now, the thing is that I actually do know the raise. I don't know the percent of the raise, but I know what the raise is. Do you know what the raise is? John? Yeah, I heard it in a couple different places. Yeah. So if I calculate in my head the difference between $10 and $11, you all said it, I actually know the raise. The raise is $1. So right now I have 4 pieces of information up there. And what I want you to do right now, you're going to do this part, is just write the verbal model that would help you write an equation. So you're going to do step 1 right now. Okay. While you're thinking about your verbal model, I got to go back to that thought that John's holding, right? He's holding this thought with the 2 months. Now, it says, what percent raise will you receive after the 2-month waiting period? But it doesn't say anything along the lines of how does this percent raise sort of get spread out over 2 months? It doesn't say anything of that nature at all. So it doesn't necessarily matter that it took me 2 months to get the raise. This question is specifically asking me, what is the percent of the raise? Do you see what or the percent raise? Do you see how it's a little bit different? Okay. So we're not going to use the 2 months as a fun fact in this problem. You could consider it, John. I don't like to consider it this way, but it is kind of like an extra piece of information that we don't use. It happens. I try to avoid it, but it happens. Okay, so you're writing your verbal model right now. I'm going to pause for a second. So there are a couple of different ways. Definitely, if you had my eyeballs, you'd be like, huh, no kidding. There's a couple of different ways that students are reading with this. Some are easier than others. I'm going to take path of least resistance if it's all the same with you. So if I don't use your formula, it's not because it's necessarily wrong. It's just a little further out there than I was really looking for. We always want to try to be efficient when we do our algebra as well. We want to get to the root of the problem as quickly and efficiently as possible. So in an effort to be efficient with our problem solving, we're going to build a real simple little verbal model. And you could honestly just take a moment to calculate your percent raise, what that is, by calculating the raise itself, how much money that was out of your total initial pay. Now, some people have the multiplication equivalent of this. So an equally easy model, verbal model, The other correct answer I've seen throughout the course of today and throughout me walking around the room right now, you could have it as a division problem. A lot of you wrote it as a multiplication problem. So what that's going to equate to is that you have your initial pay times your percentage will give you, you know, if you take a percentage of your initial pay, that's actually going to give you the amount of your raise. Remember, your raise was something that we calculated. It was your initial, or I'm sorry, your final minus your initial pay. So we could use either of these two. These are two of the most popular that I've seen today that were correct. All right. So I got to ask you, let's take a little vote. We could divide or we could multiply. Which way do you see the problem more logically? Should I do division right now or should I do multiplication? Which of these two verbal models should I use? Who likes the division one better? A couple of you like, no. So John, who likes the multiplication better? They can see that. Yeah, that's real common because of the way we teach percentages. It's a percent of something, and of in math class means to multiply. Okay, multiplication it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our initial pay, which is 10, times some percent. Oh, there's my variable. I don't know what that is. And that equals the amount of my raise, which was $1. We divide both sides by 10. So X is 1/10 or 0.1. Remember, this is supposed to be a percent. So this equates to 10%. That's a 10% pay increase. We answer our question in complete sentences. It says, what percent raise will you receive? You could say you will receive a 10% pay raise. Don't write it down unless it makes sense. Does anybody have any questions about this one? Okay. Well, let's see if it really does make sense. You have 2 to try on your own. Start to finish 3 steps, right? Step 1, you read the problem. You identify what you know and what you don't. Make a list. Step 2, you kind of write a verbal model. If you're a person who doesn't need the verbal model, that's fine. You don't have to show this step. However, you do have to write an equation and solve for X. Do not guess and check. No guessing and checking. Remember, we're kind of studying how, like, words in math class could translate to symbols. So I took this last sentence, and essentially all I did was I wrote it down. And it says the percent increase of the stock's value. Percent increase of value. The percent increase is what I called X. The initial value of the stock was 15. And then that would yield an increase of $3 or, yeah, $3. So when I solved that particular equation, thinking that of is multiplication in math class, dividing both sides by 15, I got 0.2. 20% increase in that stock. $1,100, which is what I saw when you walked around, was the answer to part A. Okay. Notes and bookwork tonight.